Okay, everybody, I am back, and we are going to persevere with the screencast on political participation and representation. So, there are several political parties in the United Kingdom, but there are only two that really are, likely to be holding power in the country. One is the Conservative, and one is the Labour Party. They tend to serve as either in power or opposition parties. However, there are several others, like the Scottish Independence Party, like the uh, Liberal Democrats, and a few others that also are, significant. I'm going to go over the main ones, and we can talk a little bit more later about Scottish independence and so forth when we talk about Brexit on Monday. But you should have some idea of the ideology involved, kind of who votes for these parties. This is a country where political parties actually stand for certain policy stances and have certain ideology. So we know the party, the Conservative Party, it is Theresa May, who is the Prime Minister. She is Prime Minister as of June of 2016. And the ideology of the Conservative Party tends to be a little right of center. They are uh, proponents of economic liberalization. And since the days of Maggie Thatcher, they continue to be, on the whole, Eurosceptic. That said, with regard to Brexit, it certainly did split the party. As we said in class, Theresa May, David Cameron, they were for staying with the European Union. However, there were plenty of conservatives who were not. So that party was divided on that issue, and that is the main reason they threw it out for referendum. The Conservative Party has dominated most of the 20th century, and they've had their share of time now in the 21st century. They tend to be attractive to older voters. They tend to be attractive to wealthier voters. And you can kind of equate them a little bit with our Republican Party from an economic standpoint here in the United States. Thatcher, in her glory, pushed out most of the moderates, so it became much more conservative once she became, I would say, economically conservative is what we're talking about in terms of ideology after Thatcher came to the party. And there was plenty of division in the 90s over all sorts of things, but by and large, they recovered from that, and David Cameron took over from Tony Blair in the 21st century. All right, looking at the Labour Party. Their current party leader is Jeremy Corbyn. He has met with some disdain. A lot of people think he's a little wacko. I don't know. A lot of the people in the Labour Party do not really respect him. I don't know how he became the leader. I think apathy, more than anything else, sort of took over. Once Labour lost the election for the second time to David Cameron, I think they, kind of decided they needed to regroup, and out popped this guy, Jeremy Corbyn, who's so far right, or I mean, so far left rather, that he really is a little out of the mainstream. He might make Bernie Sanders look somewhat moderate. From an ideology standpoint, you're going to find that the Labour Party sits a little left of center. They consider themselves social democratic, and they are for more government because they would be more in favor of programs that would help those less fortunate and in need of government assistance. They are traditionally the working class party. All through the 20th century, the unions and so forth supported them. That has not tended to be the case throughout the 21st century, especially lately. They have recognized a populist movement just like the United States. So the Labor Party typically has been attracted to the middle class, women who tend to be more liberal, and union workers. And they too had all sorts of internal divisions. It's not really surprising. Once that collectivist consensus welfare state took over, it's great that you're providing all these support networks, but it's not so great that it's dragging down the economy. So somewhere there is a medium that Tony Blair is going to try to meet in 1997 when he reinvents labor to be the new Labor Party. Now, there were significant divisions over the whole Iraq thing. That was a bit of a fiasco for Tony Blair. That sort of set the stage for Gordon Brown to come in as his successor in 2007. All right, Liberal Democrats, I mean, they are on their backs right now. They have lost so many seats that I don't even know if they're viable. I mean, they only have 8 seats now. I don't even, they don't really warrant even a slide on my PowerPoint anymore. But I mean, you guys, as recently as 2 years ago, Nick Clegg was serving as deputy prime minister because they were in a coalition government with the Conservatives. So how fast you can fall, it turns out. And this is mainly a result of the Scottish Nationalist Party. The Scottish Independence Party, rather. They have basically taken over in Scotland, where the Liberal Democrats had always enjoyed a healthy number of seats. Their party leader right now is Tim Farron. They're on their backs, and they have traditionally been fairly attractive to women and younger voters. They have had a hard time, though, winning seats, and we'll take a look at why that is in a few minutes. And so the question becomes, if you're not conservative on the right and you're not Democrat on the left, where exactly do you fit? They are somewhere between the middle. Or they are somewhere falling in the middle between the two. And so they're sort of balancing between individual freedom and collective equality. It's a hard stance to take. All right, they have always been supporters of the EU, and look at their the 2015 election. They lost all their seats. So maybe supporting the EU was not something that stood them in good stead. I haven't studied this closely enough to know exactly what the issues were and why they did so poorly. They were opponents of the Iraq War. And then again, in 2010, when the Conservatives didn't get a majority, Nick Clegg was the deputy prime minister in a coalition government. That's where whoever has the most votes, whichever party gets the most seats in an election, gets to reach out to another party first to see if they can form a government. If the Conservatives couldn't form a government, then it would turn over to the Labour Party, the next party, the second one, to see whether they could reach out to somebody, reach that 326 seats, and form a government instead. But Conservatives were able to do it. But they did have to give up some concessions, like the fixed parliament or the Fixed Term Parliament Act. That was a concession they had to make to the Liberal Democrats in 2011. Okay, somehow we already did these. Where did this come from? Oh, did I forget to do these parties? I don't know how that happened. Okay, well, anyway, we've done the ads. We talked about the hung parliament. So you probably don't even know what I'm talking about with these elections. Or yeah, you do, because we did that in the last one. Never mind, I'm talking to myself. Don't worry about it. It's 10 o'clock at night, and I got to get up at 4:15. So I'm apparently not quite all there. Okay, let's take a look at why sometimes the electoral system in a single member district plurality system ends up not really representing the people in the way it should. If you look at these various districts, Leicestershire, Hertfordshire, Gloucestershire, and so forth, you will see that in each one, the Liberal Democrats, they're getting a significant number of votes. 10%, 15%, 25%, 25%. Here they actually get the most votes, so they win this seat in Worcestershire. But all these other ones, these votes that they get, these percentages, they go for naught because only one person can win from every district. So if you look at the total percentage up here, Labour has a total out of these 5 districts, 40%. Tories or Conservatives have 37%. And Liberal Dems have 23% and only have 1 seat. So you can see here that although Labour doesn't have that many more seats or that bigger of a percentage, they have more seats simply because of the way the breakout takes place. So if you are consistently coming in second or third, you're going to have a bunch of votes, but you don't get any representation. That's what's tough about these, third and fourth parties. All right, and then finally, women and minorities. Whoops. We need to speak about that for a second because that is one of our themes in our curriculum. Parliament is approximately 22% women MPs. And so you might be saying to yourself, well, wow, that's not very good. I mean, that's not even 1 in 4 members in a country that has 50% women. How come that is so bad? Before you pass judgment, though, what is the percentage of women in our Congress? Does anybody know that little statistic? So I'm going to throw it out there. 19% is all. 19% of our Congress is female. That is embarrassing. And I'm going to tell you, female students, you need to get out the door and run for political office because that is not a very good percentage. And we need to do better. We need to have more representation from both genders, and you need to get out there, get an education, and then run for office. And I will vote for you. I promise. All right. So anyway, many of the women work part-time in the UK. The Labour Party tends to be more woman-friendly. That's not surprising. They have a lot more constituents that vote for them. There is the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975, which basically said you could not discriminate on the basis of gender. And that was followed up by the Equality Act of 2010. These basically are both gender equality type legislation for wage issues and other, gender discrimination issues. So they are taking note of it, but they still have a long way to go. With regard to minorities, Parliament is 4% minority, and they have a huge Indian population because, of course, India used to be a colony of the United Kingdom. So there has been a large migration of folks from India coming to the United Kingdom. They are the largest minority. They do have some representation in the Parliament. I would not say it's huge by any means. In fact, ethnic minorities in general only comprise 7.9% of the seats in the House of Commons. So there you go, a little bit of detail on women and minorities. All right, you guys, when we get back on Monday, please have your debate materials ready to go. We're looking for a T-chart that has pros and cons of both parliamentary system and presidential system. We'll also look at a few more question time videos, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other political parties in the UK. And then Tuesday, we'll launch into Sexiopolis, and we'll see where that puts us. Also, UK, we're looking forward to your first briefing on Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.